Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We discuss everything that's happened in the past week of Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Jeremiah.
And we are back here to record another couple of great episodes. In this first episode, we're going to be talking a lot about some moves the Texas Rangers have made recently, including Josh Hamilton and Carlos Gomez. Then with our second segment, we're going to be moving in talking about the Kansas City Royals. We're currently on a 9-game winning streak before last night's game against Miami Marlins. And then we'll end the show, at least our first show here, talking about David Ortiz of the Boston Red Sox having really a career year, over 40 years old, and that AL East race, which is definitely really tight between the Orioles, the Red Sox, and the Blue Jays.
Yeah, so we got an action-packed American League show for you guys today. Everything American League today. So yeah, to get things started off, news that broke this week was that the Texas Rangers released former MVP Josh Hamilton. Yes, they released former MVP who won the award, I think, in 2012 or 2011, I believe. And Hamilton just been struggling with injuries the past couple of years. I think he has like his third surgery in 9 months. Wow.
Yeah, he can't seem to really stay on the field as of late. You know, his last couple of years he's only played 50 and then 89 games, and he hasn't played it all this year. So
yeah, and he's been having a tough time getting on the field, and which is I don't know, do you think Josh Hamilton has a chance to come back to Major League Baseball? I honestly think Texas Rangers could possibly bring him back on a minor league contract, and he said he would be open to it. But I don't know. I think the best days of Josh Hamilton are pretty much done.
Well, I definitely think the best days are done for Hamilton. Really had breakout years with the Rangers before he signed that monster contract with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And really, since he signed that deal with the Angels, he hasn't been that same player he used to. Like you said, injuries. I mean, look at what he did in some of his time in Texas. In 2008, he hit 32 home runs and had 130 RBIs. In 2012, he had 43 home runs, 128 RBIs. He hit 359 one year. Really just one of the greatest hitters over the past, decade that we've really seen. But the last 2-3 years just can't really stay on the field. Hasn't been the player that he was before. He had a lot of issue with the drugs, a lot of relapses with that as well. So a lot of outside circumstances involving Josh Hamilton, and really, really disappointing.
Yeah, even before he was with the Texas Rangers, remember, he was with the Cincinnati Reds, and he got drafted when he was 18 years old and didn't even play in the minors right away. And so he was pretty much successful right out the gate. But, of course, like you said, the drugs were just a huge problem for Hamilton. He just couldn't stay away. And when he finally got clean with the Texas Rangers, pretty much the franchise that pretty much saved his life.
Yeah.
We put that in perspective. He just had a relapse when he was in LA, because when you're in the limelight and probably top 2 market in the country, problems could occur for someone that has problems in the past, especially with drug abuse, and alcohol abuse.
Yeah, as far as Hamilton goes, you mentioned, do you think we'll see him back? I definitely don't think we'll see anything this year, especially with the injury concerns. But Rangers general manager John Daniels did tell reporters in a conference call that he is not sort of ruling out Hamilton coming back next year. He went on to say, I'm hopeful that if he's healthy and our roster is in a spot where we'd still have him back, we can work it out. But that's still a few steps down the line. We've talked about it for a period of time, and he understands why we did cut him here. So Josh Hamilton, maybe, if he's healthy enough, could be back on the Rangers next year or really any other team.
Yeah, and the reason why they released him right now, well, they had to do it before September 1st, so that way they can bring him back, I think, May of 15 next season. So I think they have possible plans for Hamilton in the future. But I do think Josh Hamilton will more likely sign with the team than Tim Tebow. I'm just throwing that out there. You can agree with me, Ben, or not, but I'm just throwing that out there. And
I say no, but okay.
What, you think Tim Tebow's going to sign before Josh Hamilton?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes.
Because I don't know. That's going to be something.
He has his tryout coming up in less than a week.
20 teams are going to be there.
Well, confirmed 20 teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if every team is there, just because they have absolutely nothing to lose.
They were all invited, so
And I expect everyone to be there because they have literally nothing to lose with going. So I think that, and with Hamilton, you wouldn't at least see a return until at the earliest next year. With Tebow, after he has his workout, then you have really his fate sort of decided for him. So I think there's a better chance with Tebow.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's fair. Well, anyways, in other news out of Texas, another outfielder instead of Josh Hamilton.
Yeah,
they added another outfielder.
They take one out and they bring one right in.
Yes, Carlos Gomez is set to be promoted to the Major League roster on Thursday. Yes, Carlos Gomez, he is the former Houston Astros outfielder who was struggling really terrible this year. And, of course, he has some past success with the Milwaukee Brewers, pretty much his most notable years. And he's pretty much joining a team that's in really good position already. And they have some young outfielders there in Texas, Delano DeShields and Nomar Mazar. But they are pretty much going to be a platoon role with Carlos Gomez coming back in. I think if Carlos Gomez, if he had a change of scenery, and I knew he's still young enough, he's 30 years old, he still has a chance, be really good in the majors. I don't think he's done yet. He's still young enough to be a really good asset to a major league team.
Yeah, with Gomez, the problem has been injuries. In his last couple of years, he's only played a total of 115 games, and you play 162 a season, so only 115. He's played less than half of the games in the last 2 years. So that's definitely a concern. I think with Gomez going to Texas, I think it's a good move because they're not going to really expect much out of him, not going to really need him.
And they have a deep lineup already.
Exactly. We mentioned that maybe Gomez could be going to a team like Miami after the Giancarlo Stanton injury. Obviously, that's not the case now. He's going to Texas. Well, he's staying in Texas, but he's moving from Houston over to the Rangers. So I think it's a good move for them. Not going to really expect much. I think he can be a rotational guy, a guy who can maybe come in if someone's getting a rest day, if there's an injury. He's never been a really, really strong hitter. He's never hit over 300 in his career, really never hit over 284. But he's a guy who's capable of doing some damage. He's hit home runs. He's hit seasons with home runs of 24, 23, 19, had as high as 73 RBIs a couple of times. So he's capable of driving in runs when needed.
He's also capable of running the base paths, too. I think he had 1 year when he had more than 40 in Milwaukee a couple years ago.
Yeah, 41 year in 2013.
Yeah.
The year before that, he had 37 and then 34 another year, too. So he's capable of, when he gets on base, he can definitely turn a single into really a double because he can steal a base quite easily.
Yeah, and he's actually supposed to be the everyday outfielder because, the Texas Rangers, they lose Sin-Chu Chu from another injury who's also been on the DL multiple times this year. Chu just can't seem to be healthy. But, yeah, man, I love the Gomez signing. I really thought Miami Marlins were going to take a chance on Gomez because they are trying to win. They are trying to fill the void of Giancarlo Stanton. I'm not saying that Gomez would have, pretty much replaced Stanton in a way. You just can't replace that kind of power. But Gomez can be a really good contribution to a winning team, and the Texas Rangers, they have a really deep lineup with a couple acquisitions they made, Jonathan Lucroy, Carlos Beltran making huge impact on the lineup, and a lineup that also includes, a lot of hitters like Ian Desmond being having a resurgent year. Everyone thought he was kind of done in a way, but yeah, man, I like the signing, and I do think I'm not going to say his season's saved in a way, but I do see him making a little bit of an impact.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in October,
Yeah, definitely a good signing. Low risk, high reward, in my opinion. So good move for the Rangers. Seem to be making a lot of great moves recently, bringing in Beltran, Lucroy, as you mentioned, in the trade deadline. So really pushing towards that playoff spot. I think they're the best team in the AL.
Oh, yeah, by far. We even talked about them here. I think Indians being the best club in the Major American League at one point. But, yeah, it is a great signing. And to go with the deep lineup that includes Adrian Beltre, Ian Desmond, Carlos Beltran, Jonathan Lucroy. I'm not sure who else I'm forgetting. I'm pretty sure there's one guy I forgot. But, yeah, it's a pretty good sign. And I think this is good for the Rangers, for them to make a deep playoff run. You know, they have the talent to make a deep playoff run. So.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely in the AL, which I think is a lot weaker than the NL, for sure.
All right, well, that includes our first segment. We're going to take our first break. We will be talking about the Kansas City Royals having a 9-game winning streak before last night's game against the Miami Marlins. Did they win? Did they lose? Well, you're just going to have to continue to listen to find out. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We got a couple of games currently going on for your viewing pleasure here. Going to update you on the scores. We have in the bottom of the sixth inning the Tigers and the Twins. Tigers with a huge 8-0 lead. And then in the seventh inning, we have Boston and Tampa Bay. The Red Sox and the Rays are tied at 1-1.
Actually, the Tigers are winning 8-1.
So the Twins must have just scored.
They just scored, man. You just missed it. All right.
So, yeah, it's still in the bottom of the sixth inning. The Twins obviously batting. And like Jeremiah said, they just scored. They got 8.
All right, let's get into some news out of the American League Central here. The Kansas City Royals had a 9-game winning streak heading to last night's game against the Miami Marlins, and they had to go against none other than Jose Fernandez.
He's unbeatable at home.
He was unbeatable. He threw 9 strikeouts, I think, in 6 innings. And he increased his season total to 213 strikeouts for the season, which set a Marlins record that was previously set at 209 by Ryan Dempster in 2000. So that was like 16 years that friend, yeah.
And he still has probably a good 3, 4, maybe 5 starts left in him.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And so, anyways, going back to the Kansas City Royals here, yeah, they lost that game, and that 9-game winning streak was snapped. Yes, and it kind of hurts the Royals' wildcard chances. They're just on a roll. They look like they're about to, make a huge playoff, push, which I still think they are. But yeah, it looks like, I don't know. There's just too much talent in the American League this year.
Well, I don't think that one game loss really made a difference last night against Jose Fernandez in Miami. You got to kind of expect, although you're playing quite well, you got to kind of expect that you're not going to come out on top of that game. So as far as Kansas City goes, I think you're right. I think maybe it's one of those cases of too little, too late. They currently sit at 65-61 with that 9-game winning streak before last night. So still, they were under 500 before that. Kansas City doing quite well at home at 40-21, but their problem is they're 15 games under 500 on the road at 25-40. They don't have that same team they had last year. Their bullpen isn't the same. Their starting pitching is not great, and they haven't had some of those strong bats to really carry them through the season like they had last year. I really think when I look at the American League, we're going to see 3 teams out of the AL East in the playoffs. You're going to have the division winner, and then obviously I think the 2 wildcard teams are going to go down to those 2 teams between Toronto, Baltimore, and Boston. So I really think you're going to have a 3-team AL East playoff picture.
Like I said, there's way too much talented teams in the American League. And, I do agree with you, Ben. I think we're at that point now where 3 teams in American League East are going to be in the playoffs. they're just really good lineups. You got the Toronto Blue Jays, probably one of the best lineups in the league. Boston Red Sox, getting really good production from a lot of their young players. Mookie Betts is emerging in the MVP race. The Baltimore Orioles, they just been really consistent this whole year. Chris Tillman has been really good, even though he just got put on the DL. He reclaimed his role as the ace of that staff again. So we'll see how much that Tillman injury is going to impact the playoff race. But yeah, man, I don't think the Kansas City Royals, even with that 9-game winning streak, I think it was a little too late. And remember, this is the team that won the World Series last year.
Yep.
And I didn't
swept
think
the World Series.
Yeah,
last
they
year.
did. And even the year before that, they lost to the San Francisco Giants. I think in 4-1 games in 5 games. I think, or no, 7. It was a 7-game. It was a 7-game series. 7-game series. Yeah, that was quite a series too. And I just don't know. They didn't have the pitching rotation that you're used to seeing. They don't have James Shields, who has not been the same pitcher with the last 2 teams that he's been with. And the best pitcher, honestly, well, not their best pitcher, but the most impressive pitchers have been Yordan Ventura lately. Edison Volquez has been kind of consistent, inconsistent at times. I don't know. It's just having an up and down season. A lot of their pitchers just really up and down.
Yeah, I guess the one positive you can sort of throw into that pitching staff is Danny Duffy.
He's been the one bright spot. Yes, we talked about him last week, being a Cy Young contender, and I think being a reliever early in the season kind of helped him because it kind of like redo his pitches. I'm not sure if I'm using the correct term, but it made him use his pitches a little differently, and I think he kind of used that to be a starter, and we've seen it. He's been a strikeout thrower. Yeah, he's been getting them some strikeouts for the Royals.
Yeah, and the Royals technically are not out of it. They are only 5 games back, but there is a lot of teams battling. So you have obviously Toronto and Boston currently in first, and then Baltimore's right there. All those teams so close. I really do think all 3 teams get in. But even then, the Tigers are 3 games back. The Mariners are 3 games back. Houston is 4.5. Then you have the Yankees and the Royals at 5 games back. Really the only teams that are, I still say, that are in contention. But even if Kansas City does keep playing at the pace they are, and maybe some of those teams at the top falter, there's still 3-4 teams that are still battling as well. So they're not just battling, obviously, the contenders up top, but they're battling those other teams as well. I don't see them getting by everybody. So
yeah, I don't either. All the teams that are ahead of them, they're just playing better. The Tigers, they're just playing better. The Mariners, their lineup is just playing better. Orioles, Boston, and Toronto, probably one of the top 3 lineups in all of baseball, honestly. You can put them honestly there. And I just think, honestly, I even said it earlier, I think a couple months, I think when we first started the show, that the Royals, I just couldn't see them being back in the playoffs because their pitching rotation was just not enough. Their lineup, they're just not getting as much production last year. And they just lost some. It looks like they just lost some of that magic, but I don't know. I think they can honestly make it back to the playoffs next year. And because baseball, there's different teams in the playoffs every year. I feel like your team is always in it at the beginning of the year. It's felt that way for the past couple years. Because remember when the Warriors just came out of nowhere a couple years ago, and
it was that wild card game against the A's.
Yeah. And it pretty much put the A's back.
Yep.
And then the Royals kind of progressed them a little bit. But yeah, they still have most of that talent from those 2 playoff teams. And I don't actually see them going away next year. But this year, yeah, I think it's pretty much too little too late to go on a huge winning streak.
I agree.
Yeah.
9 games is definitely quite impressive. That's a couple of sweeps in there. So definitely a quite good accomplishment. But I think it's, like I said, just too little too late. And, I mean, they're kind of just, too far down in the playoff battle. If they were a team maybe like Detroit, maybe only 3 games back, maybe I could see wow, this could really push them over that hump and get them into the playoffs, but I just don't see it happening. No way.
Yeah, it's just it's too little too late for Kansas City out there. I'm sorry out there, KC, but yeah, there's always next year. All right, well, we're going to take our final break, and we're going to be talking about, we're actually going to continue talking about the American League East and David Ortiz. Yes, he's had a historic game yesterday, and we'll tell you how when we come back.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
All right, welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, and for our final segment today, we're going to be talking about the American League East, and of course, Big Papi, David Ortiz, getting a historic milestone yesterday. Yes, the 40-year-old David Ortiz is the oldest player in history to have 30 home runs in a season.
Yeah, he's had quite an impressive career. We mentioned it a lot of times, really having a career year. So David Ortiz is currently hitting .322. He's slugging .637, which would be his career high right now. And he has an OPS of 1.049, which would also be a career high at 40 years old.
Yeah, he's also the first Red Sox player in franchise history to drive in 100 runs and 10 seasons. That is incredible when you think of the consistency. And that's incredible when you think of the history of the Boston Red Sox. One of the most coveted teams, not just in baseball, but just in sports in general. And Ortiz, he's only one shy for 18 on career list behind Jimmy Fox. So, yeah, man, David Ortiz, looks like I don't know what it is. I just don't know what. It seemed like Father Time can't defeat him. I honestly feel like he can play maybe a couple more seasons, but I just think, honestly, when you're at that age that he is and you're just constantly traveling, being away from your family for so long, I can get that part of the reason why he's retiring. But honestly, though, the way that Ortiz is hitting, he can honestly play maybe a couple more years, a couple more seasons, man.
Yeah, I think it definitely benefits that he is a DH and he's not playing in the field every day, so he doesn't have that added strain of standing out there, fielding balls, diving on the ground to make plays, etc. He just has to really hit and run, basically. So I think that definitely helps him, and that may be part of the reason why he's able to play, in almost his 20th year now. So he's been able to and really keep up the success. Like, even if you look at the last couple of years, he still drove in 100 runs each time, and he hit 37 home runs and then 35 the year before that. So he's still even being just as successful this year. I'd say the one difference this year as opposed to last year is his batting average. He's hitting .322. The couple of years before that, he hit .373 and .363, which is not terrible, but it definitely doesn't stand out like .322 does.
Yeah, and I think he's second in the American League in batting average. You know who's number one? Jose Altuve, .361. Wow.
Yeah, well, no one's catching that.
No, but the fact that he's number 2 overall in the American League is pretty impressive. And I don't know. I kind of feel kind of sad seeing David Ortiz go. He was playing during a time when I grew up watching baseball. And I don't know, having David Ortiz about to be gone, Alex Rodriguez playing his last game as a Yankee, Derek Jeter retiring, I don't know, man. It makes me feel kind of old, and I'm only 24 years old. So
Mariano Rivera a couple of years before that as well.
Mariano Rivera,
for the Yankees.
yes. And I know, I never grew up as a fan of the Red Sox and New York Yankees, but, man, they just had so many good players on both of these teams for the past couple of years. And as a baseball fan, you got to appreciate, the greatness of these players that were on these teams, and I don't know. I'm going to be sad to see David Ortiz go because I really think he can play a couple more years. But, the Red Sox are kind of like entering a new era like the Yankees are with their young players. Because we talked about the Yankees and the Bombers. You know, with Gary Sanchez, who's been on a tear lately. You know,
8 home runs in 10 games.
Exactly, he's been on an absolute tear. You know, Aaron Judge, Tyler Austin, and you know, the same thing can be said about the Red Sox. You know, you got Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, and Jackie Bradley Jr. You know, it just.
And then you throw in the mix of these guys, these veterans like Ortiz, Dustin Pedroia, you know, people that are on their pitching staff as well, people like Clay Buchholz, Rick Porcello's having a great year for Boston. So really kind of a mix, but those young guys are the ones that are kind of carrying them into the promised land for the future, definitely.
Yeah, and well, you know, as of right now, the Red Sox are ahead of the Yankees in like a rebuilding mode because honestly, the Red Sox could honestly be contention for World Series in October. Yankees are a little far behind, but anyways, going back to the American League East race, they are tied for the league with the Toronto Blue Jays. They actually failed to take sole possession last night against the Tampa Bay Rays. They lost 4-3 in 11 innings last night, and honestly, that was a big opportunity for them to take sole possession, and they just couldn't capitalize on it, despite Ortiz's accomplishment last night.
And they're actually losing right now, so in the 7th inning, the Rays have a 2-1 lead over Boston. So definitely still in contention, and only 1 run for the Sox. Definitely something they're not sort of accustomed to doing. They lead the major leagues in runs at 688. The next highest is the Cubs at 647. So they have 41 more runs than any other team in baseball. A lot of that to do with Ortiz, Betts, Bogaerts, all those guys we talked about. So they're definitely still capable. The thing with the Red Sox I think that will hurt them come playoff time is that lack of pitching. Porcello's been really good, but he's still kind of shaky. He
hasn't been great. He hasn't been like dominant, you know.
And he gets a lot of run support. Obviously, the Red Sox the most runs in the league, so he gets a lot of run support. In October, you have really strong pitching. A lot of that run support goes down. You don't really have huge scoring games in the playoffs very often, so I think that's definitely going to hurt them. I think they're definitely going to be a lock for the playoffs, whether it's a wild card spot or they end up getting past Toronto and Baltimore for that division. But, I mean, that's what's going to come down to their chances in October, in my opinion, is can their pitching somehow kind of turn it around, or can their hitting really keep it up in October?
Well, they do have David Price as their ace right now. He's been up and down ever since he was acquired from, I think, the Tigers. And they also got Drew Pomeranz, who they acquired from the Padres. He's been kind of up and down, too, since he came to Boston. Porcello's been really consistent, but he's, like you said, gets a lot of run support. Clay Buchholz has been pretty much going on a little bit of a roll lately, but I'm not sure if he's going to be on that pitching rotation come near the end of the season, because Buchholz hasn't been good in like 3 years. Honestly, Buchholz has been probably the worst pitcher in baseball. You can make a case for the past couple seasons, since I think his breakout 2012 season. But yeah, I do think this team is a lock for the playoffs, but I don't know. It's tough to see who is going to win this division, you know? Like, there's just so much talent on the other two teams that they're competing against, you know, the Toronto Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles. But I don't know, like, out of these three teams, who has the best pitching rotation? I think that's the question, that because we know how good their lineups are, but who has the best pitching rotation? You know,
I think it's tough to say. I definitely don't think it's Boston, so you have to throw in Baltimore and Toronto. I mean, I think Toronto has the best pitcher right now in Aaron Sanchez. He's definitely had the best season, in my opinion. But, I mean, I really don't know. I think it's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, it is. I think it is a kind of a toss-up. You know, Baltimore, they got Chris Tillman being ace again, but he just got put on the DL. Dylan Bundy, he was one of their top prospects, struggling with injuries, got put into the bullpen and got put into the rotation and has been really good as a starter. And so, I don't know. It's kind of tough to figure out, like, who has the best rotation out of these three teams. It's for sure not Boston.
No,
but
no way.
Out of Toronto and Baltimore, it's kind of hard because in Toronto, you got two guys that have been really consistent. J. Happ, I think he has like 17 or 18 wins. And you got Aaron Sanchez, who only has 2 losses. And Baltimore, they got really consistent play from the rotation. Yeah, it's tough to say, but, you know, it's we'll see when it comes, you know, near the end of September and October. And I think we'll find out in October who is the best rotation.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to because I think all three of these teams are going to be there. So
yeah, all right, man. That was a great discussion. So that concludes our show.
Yeah, it does. But we are going to be recording one more quick one. Going to be talking about the Chicago Cubs being the first team in baseball this year to 80 wins. Also breaking down things like the Dodgers and Giants series currently going on. The Giants really struggling since the All-Star break. Going to really break down, are they done? Are they dead in the water? As well as talking a lot about the NL West and really NL period. NL show.
Yeah, so we had an AL only show, and that's going to be our NL only show. So you guys do not go anywhere. Stay tuned. So, you can follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball, and you can like us on Instagram at GSMC_baseball. That is the same handle as the Twitter page. You can also like us on Facebook at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. You can also catch this show and multiple variety of platforms, including iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, SoundCloud, and even on our website at the network, gsmcpodcast.com. We have lots of shows, and do you have anything to add to that, Ben?
I think you touched on everything. I just want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed recording it, and I hope you have a good day.
Yeah.